you ever felt frustrated and helpless after listening and doing everything your vet told you to do, but it only made your sick pet worse and not get any better? That's me in 2008 with my first adopted cat, Meow. I did everything the vet told me to do, and I realized she wasn't getting any better and only worse. So I decided to look into alternative health options and was drawn to the stories of holistic pet service entrepreneurs and their transformative journey, overcoming obstacles, chasing their passion, and creating a movement that has caused a ripple effect of positive change in the lives of their clients and pets around the world. Join me as I share the raw, inspiring journeys of these amazing entrepreneurs, their successes and failures. My name is Amrys Wang, and this is The Raw Entrepreneur. Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world right now. This is Amrys Wang of The Raw Entrepreneur. Today, I am so honored. The hair on my arms are actually standing up right now, and my heart is so full of warmth and love for these three people who have made the effort to come and meet me in 2 cities, plus minus 3, Roxanne Stone, Jacqueline Hill, and Steve. I'm sorry, I didn't catch your last name.
Steve Fisher.
Steve Fisher.
Steve Fisher, Fisher.
Steve Fisher. So these 3 wonderful people, they were the founders of originally part of Answers Pet Food, and then they started Kure Pet Food, and they have agreed to come on today to share their story with me. What is Kure Pet Food?
Steve, do you want, since you're one of the owners?
I need to talk about, I'll talk about Kure Pet Food.
Okay.
Kure Pet Food is what it's spelled, Kure. It's good for the animals. So it's founded by 5 farmers back in May and June under the name of Initial LLC. So we had a branding name, Kure, Kure, to make it a happy pet food brand. And we are doing raw fermented milk, raw cheese, raw vegetables, and raw fish broth and chicken broth. That's what Kure is initially doing. And in the meantime, we have an injunction because of a person who says we don't have the right to launch a new company, which was Pet Answers.
Okay. So now this is a bit of a difficult question for everyone, but maybe I can ask Jacqueline, how do you feel about what is going on right now?
Well, we're all very sad and concerned for our pets because it's very hard, and we're trying to be patient, and we're trying to work the court system fairly, and we hope that we can put the Kure product back on the market very soon.
Roxanne, do you have any thoughts you would like to share?
Just to sort of echo what Jacqueline was saying, it's been a difficult time, unfortunately, because of the court order basically instructs us to not be able to work within our field of expertise. So we're very bound. It's frustrating because every being in our cells, or every part of our cells for Jacqueline and I think I could speak for Steve as well, is to want to put the best food on the market for these animals who are often suffering with very specific health conditions. And so for the past 12 years, Jacqueline, myself, and the farmers have all collaborated and worked very, very hard to be able to offer those unique products that can be medicine. Oftentimes food is medicine, and it is very nurturing and therapeutic. And so to have a judge say, you can't do what you're passionate about and what you're, sort of what you've been driven to do for the past 12 years, to be turned off or taken away from you. It's a real test of your patience and your faith. But like Jacqueline said, we're doing whatever we can within the legal confines of the, the Pennsylvania court systems to work with that. But we do hope that we can offer these products again in the future, because they are so important and we've seen them perform so well.
Why do you think the products that you formulate work?
Well,
Go ahead.
Well, in my opinion, food in its, I guess in its native state, sort of the way nature intended, is very powerful. We've denied those types of foods to our animals, our companion animals in particular, for many decades now, with the advent of the Industrial Revolution and processed foods. So it works well because it is the native diet that these carnivores are designed to consume. And so for that reason, the bioavailability, the degree of nutrient density, they haven't had that. And so because of that reason, it works, it performs, and the body will do amazing things if you can give it what it needs. So it's basically putting the body back into a state of repair and a state of remission, because it has what it needs, and it's not fighting toxins, it's not fighting for simple digestion or calories. It's given a food that is intended for the physiology of that animal. A term that Karen Becker often uses, biologically appropriate, and that's what we're getting back to. We're getting back to giving these species, biologically appropriate food for their physiological well-being. So that's why it works. It's I always go back to, you can't get healthy food from sick animals. So what I'm speaking about is, confined animal feeding operations, the livestock that is offered oftentimes in the US and around the world, are often sick animals that are not fed a species appropriate diet. So they're on GMO grains, or they're on very high starchy products. They're not on food that is intended for herbivores. And so that's number one, where if you're going to make a diet out of an animal that is not well, then how can you expect it to perform well in the species that's intended to eat it? So getting back to healthy soil that produce healthy plants, that produce healthy livestock, so that we can get a food that is truly healthy for our pets.
I think answers went above and beyond just providing a species appropriate diet. I worked in the veterinary industry for 20 years before we started Answers, and I was privy to understanding how nutrients can affect, and improve a disease. And keep in mind, when Roxanne and I started this in 2010, we evolved over time to tweak these diets to make them more appropriate. you know, when we entered the pet food industry, nobody was talking about your protein to fat ratio and how that affects kidney disease and how important that is for delivering nutrients and things like that. And we didn't start by putting fermented cod livers in our diet, but we had the opportunity to get that ingredient, and that took it to the next level. And we, you know, always were looking at it. I have a biology background. Roxanne has a food science background, and we're sisters. She's 8 years younger than me. And she lived on one coast and I lived on the other coast. And when our two brains came together for this project, literally, I always would say light bulbs are going off all over the place. I understand now why, because we're connecting each other's dots. And it really worked out very well for us. I mean, I had the fun time of working with Steve Fisher. Steve developed the equipment to batch this up to the higher levels. You know, it's one thing to do something on stovetop. It's another thing to do, how many gallons does your pot hold?
200.
200 gallons at a time. So, yeah.
We use 2 pots to make the stock.
And I want you also to understand is, you know, food is energy. And I was asked many times, why does your milk work for my dog, but the local farmer's raw milk doesn't? And I said, well, when all of our products go through the farmers and are produced on the farm, the energy at these farms are just amazing. And that energy goes into our food, which helps deliver even more, you know, health. I really think, and I was told this by many holistic vets, make sure your people are happy and smiling and laughing when they're producing these foods. And it makes a difference. It does.
Under the sunshine, under one big sky, we produce this food.
So I think that's the other reason why it worked so well. And, you know, our passion was behind it.
I am very interested to know about Steve's and the farmer's story. You know, like how did you hook up with get to know Jacqueline and Roxanne? I mean, what was that like?
It's a long story.
I have time.
It's a long story short.
Okay.
But 12 years ago, I was doing raw milk, dairy milk, which is cow milk. And we had brown Swiss cows. And we had grass pasture for the brown Swiss cows. And we put that milk in glass bottles and sold to health food stores. And Jacqueline bought Swissville dairy milk at a farmer's market. And she contacted me 12 years ago about raw goat milk. And I said, yeah, we can do raw goat milk tomorrow. Well, we have a bottling equipment now. We'll put it in plastic bottles or glass. But glass didn't work because of freezing and shipping. And she said, plastic won't work in her part because they're doing green environmental. And so we bought a carton machine, an old dilapidated carton machine, make it work for a number of years. And then we bought a newer one. And my son-in-law, Irvin, is the Rocky Ridge goat dairy that packs the milk. So over time, we increased the volume from only a few cases a day to 70,000 pounds a week. And that goes into cheese. Also, we're doing raw butter now. Kure just started raw butter into milk and also cow kefir. So we have a network of farms and families in our local Pennsylvania area making cheese, raw vegetables, fish stock or fish broth, chicken broth, and the goat dairy. And the goat dairy is Rocky Ridge goat dairy, and they have a large freezer where they freeze the farmer's product, ready to ship to across the United States, the farmer product. So we're individual farmers working for a company which could be Pet Answers or Kure. We have our independent family, independent farm, independent equipment, and also intellect. So we're making this product for Pet Answers or for Kure. And then probably August, Keith Hill said that there's going to be a lawsuit against Kure and Jacqueline and Roxanne because we formed a new company. So that's what brought the lawsuit. He formed a lawsuit through court order that we should be sued because we started a new company. And we had invited him a few times that we would join him in the company, and he said he's not interested. Then we said we will make two companies. We will supply pet answers and also Kure pet food. And because Kure had a lead on or friendly terms with pets, it didn't work in his office that all these people leave pet answers, which were 5 people. It was Jacqueline, Roxanne, Coca, the designer, Billy, the salesperson, and Dr. Doug all left the company within, I'm going to say moments. And that declined sales for pet answers because the key people left. I call that the golden key. And so they hired a lady by the name of Angel Helm. And when she got on the chair, she fired 5 more people, which were key people to pet answers. And that crippled them some more. Through their crippling of throwing away key people twice, they have lost the golden key and also the other operating key. They lost 10 people. That crippled them even more. With that crippling effect, they became disturbed and decided it was Kure who made the sales decline, and it wasn't. It was their own folly that made the sales decline. So the farmers are still independent families and farms, independent intellectual properties, but they took all that away from us. Another absurd thing they did was take our food safety plan. The food safety plan belongs at the farm, in the office or in the plant, and they tried and locked it up at the court saying it was their food safety plan.
So that means with the lawsuit, you are unable to produce anything right now, make anything right now?
That's correct. They said the farmers' intellectual property was theirs. They took it, and they now have an injunction on the farms. We're not allowed to produce any products for anyone.
And how has that affected everyone in your community?
Well, it's a very sad effect because it's like them putting us in the mud and tramping all over us. So we're stalled to a no activity. We're not allowed to make fish broth for anyone, and we won't make for them because the fish stock I was making for them, they came up with a formula that didn't work. And when that formula hit the market, it was too watery and it was no fermentation in it because it was their design. And the customers said they would not buy fish stock from them anymore because of the too watered down product. When that happened, I told Pet Answers I would make fish stock for them only 4 more weeks through June because they don't have any right telling me how to make the fish stock and ruining my ingredient or my formula, which they tried to do, tried to ruin my formula. And my company's name is Ultra Design LLC. And my formula is my formula. And if they have ruined my formula, it has ruined my credit. So that's why I ended up doing business with Pet Answers because they were ruining my formula or my credit. When we started Kure, I reformulated it and didn't make it stock. I made it broth and improved it in the improved the formula, which is probably 25% stronger and better than it had been in the past 10 years.
Okay. So am I correct to say that, to be very clear, the fish fermented broth is
That's correct.
it's yours, your intellectual property. It's your
That's right. For 10 years,
design,
it was my,
it's your recipe, it's your effort. And basically you were an independent company that sold
yes,
the food to Answer's
yes,
Pet Food
that's
independently.
correct. That's
And
right.
now with Kure, again, you also did the same thing. Kure doesn't own you. They don't own anything, neither does Answers.
No, correct, correct. And the ironic thing was, this is sort of a laugh, but over the 10 years that Answers was doing business with Ultra Design Fish Stock, they never gave me a purchase order. And so I laugh at they weren't even existing business with me because they never gave me a purchase order. I just supplied them with, when the cooler or freezer was getting empty, I just made another batch for them. So the whole thing is very silly, very injustice and very silly.
Would you say you based your relationship with Answers in the beginning with these two ladies?
Yes.
Why
We're not sure that,
why did you trust them, or why did you decide to do business with them?
because they had a trustworthy question. They want raw milk, and we were able to supply them with raw milk.
But they did take a big chance on us in the beginning because 12 years ago, we didn't have anything on the market. When I went to Steve, I said, this is my vision and dream. I said, can you help me make it happen? And he took a chance and put together the first goat dairy down at Urban's. Remember that? And
I remember.
yeah, and he built a dairy from scratch for the goats. Started with what, 60 goats?
Something like that.
Yeah. And we had some struggles in the beginning. But he never lost faith in us. He was always very faithful and would always mitigate any problems we were having until we got things straight.
And then Jacqueline and Roxanne were alone in the business except for son Derek, who was financing. And so we had a good relationship by just conversation. They need more milk, so we added another dairy. They need more milk again, we added some more dairy. And then they had overstock of milk. They decided to go to a cheesemaker, which was David Ash, and he makes the raw cheese now. And then in the meantime, I was slowing down in my dairy or my farm, and I said, I need a product. So I introduced a broth or stock to Jacqueline and Roxanne. They said they're very interested. So we designed and formulated vats and heaters and bulk tanks and stainless steel, and did R&D on the cook stuff, the stove top at home. Then we increased it to 200-gallon vats to boil that fish stock or bones. The dead bones became fish stock for the pets and humans. And whenever I'm finished with a fish stock batch or chicken, I always take 8 ounces. I put my signature to it. I drink 8 ounces to make sure that it's not a poison or that it's a good product for the pets. So my signature's on every carton out there.
And Steve, if you don't mind me interjecting, can you
Sure.
tell, am I saying it right? Amrys?
Amrys.
Amrys. Could you say, let Amrys know what you do with the, so that there's no waste left over. Can you tell her what you do with the boiled bones and how that goes back into your farm?
Oh yes, that's very simple and it's very natural. We take the bones out of the fish vats, which is the boiling pot, and just bury them, and they decompose back to soil. So we spread that soil back to the field again.
Wow.
There's no waste, no plastic.
I love this. I mean, this is something that I've read in books, and it's like a dream for a lot of people. The idea
Yes.
of a very green, ecological approach to agriculture where you respect the land. There's no waste. Everything,
Yes.
everything is used and respected. And
Yes, and there's a very interesting story on fermented sardines. They might be 8-9 inches long. And if it's fermented properly, which I was able to discover in the last years, you need to add low pH liquid and the right amount of heat for the right amount of hours. It will ferment and break down to a sauce. And when they're fermented properly, it's a sauce, and then there's a little bit scale and bone left. And there's only 5 pounds of bone and scale left from 150 pounds of sardines. All the others is fermented and goes into the vessel in a sauce, live, raw, fermented sardines. And that's where the life is for the pet broth or the fish broth.
You know what, the process that you're describing is a very old world way of cooking.
Yes. Oh man.
Yes. It's something that in certain parts in Asia over here that we still actually prefer doing.
Sure.
Fermented fish stock is something that I know a lot of Caucasians don't like that smell,
I know.
But over here in Asia, we actually do a lot of fermentation in our diet, from soya beans to fish sauce. So it's actually, I think most Asians in different parts of the world in Asia, we actually have some form of fermented food that we eat as a daily thing, like kimchi in Korea. It's fermented cabbages or any kind of vegetables. Chinese people, we do a lot of fermented food as well. It's soya sauce, even eggs, pickles and stuff. So when I heard about Answers doing fermented fish, I really was like, I wish I could just put my hand through and get a carton and bring it back to Singapore. So
Sure.
I was telling Roxanne, like years ago, I actually wrote to Answers. This must have been in the beginning when all of you were there. And I actually asked, like, oh, do you ship to Singapore? And they said, no, I'm sorry, we don't ship out of the country. So that was my darn, but I followed your story, and basically, to me, Answers was always about Roxanne and Jacqueline and the farmers, the strength, this not trying to be disrespectful, but it's like a beautiful trifecta, a trinity of sorts between the three of you.
Yes.
This beautiful minds, as Jacqueline was saying, Roxanne's experience, your experience, and then Steve and his community coming together, creating a very beautiful product that really made everyone sit up, and I can tell you that I had several friends in Singapore, same as me, and we were like, oh, we really were hoping that you guys would just grow and grow so that you can ship overseas so that we can get something,
Sure.
It's because from the testimonials that was coming in, from, people within the US that was taking your products, not paid for, but all these people, all these pet owners were talking about like a miracle was happening with their animals. All their sick animals were somehow turning around and getting better and improving, you guys created a very beautiful and blessed product. I can't find the words for it, but it truly inspired me and a lot of people, I believe, to believe in what you guys were doing, and especially with Steve and your community, because you guys were celebrating something that is so old world, that is so back to nature, and is so respectful of the earth that I honestly think that a lot of people around the world, we have forgotten about that. we are so handicapped and addicted to so-called modernization and all that plastic and, you know, all those chemicals just to give us that, you know, that I would say that fake high, you know, that illusion of health, but really it isn't. So for me, I've been following your story for really like the longest time. I mean, when you said 12 years, I was thinking like, has it been that long? You know, like, you know, I'm a bit like, wow, okay, I've been a fan of yours for a really long time then, you know. But I just want to thank you because what you guys created is really, you know, showing the world that this is a really good business model that works. You know, it's a lot of hard, there's a high standard. And speaking of standards, how did you manage to get past AFCO and you know, deal with all that regulation?
Yeah, I guess I could speak to that. Early on when Jacqueline presented the idea of a pet food company to me, you know, my background was in human food. I'm a human food nutritionist and food scientist. And so the contrast between the two industries is actually quite significant in how they regulate. And one of the first things that Jacqueline said, you know, we're a small and upcoming startup and we don't have a lot of money, but this is a good investment to send you to AFCO. You need to really go to these meetings and understand the regulatory part of, because that was my portion of, you know, that was one of my contributions to the company, to make sure we were meeting the regulatory requirements, but at the same time, blending that with, like you said, the standard of quality that we were looking to achieve. So it was quite a blend of, you know, what can we call this on an ingredient statement to appease AFCO so they, you know, but at the same time, truly describe to the end user what is in there, you know, because AFCO, I'm sure you're aware since you are experienced in the pet food industry, they write ingredient definitions, which is something that doesn't exist in human food. There are standards of identity in human food for certain types of things, like a yogurt, a low-fat yogurt has a standard of identity, cheese, certain products, but they're not really like ingredient definitions, where in AFCO, for example, they write very specific ingredient definitions to describe certain materials and ingredients, and it's very difficult to have real food, like you were saying, like we've evolved to be so processed in the industry that the processing and standardizations of ingredients has unfortunately overshadowed real food. And so people are afraid of real food because they're so used to the processed ingredients. And so bringing real food back into, you know, something as simple as sea salt. Okay, so something as simple as sea salt, which is basically you know, air dried and unprocessed salt with many of its mineral components still in there. AFCO does not have a definition for sea salt. They only have a definition for salt. So if I want to add sea salt to my formula, or it's in my formula, and I want to convey that to the customer, I have to put salt. So they wouldn't know. So the end user is going to look at the package and say, well, there's salt in there, and they're going to assume that it's processed iodized salt, you know, that you would get off a typical store shelf, when it's not. It was actually, you know, Celtic sea salt, or, you know, Redmond clay sea salt, and which is from the earth and very unprocessed, and it makes a big difference, you know, in the end analytical, you know, So for that reason, there was a lot of trying to blend that, trying to get AFCO to understand that this is real food and this deserves a definition.
12 years. That's a long time. And with a small startup business, not a lot of money, did you ever think of quitting?
I definitely never thought of quitting. Okay. I was just talking to Cole Harrington this morning about this. Roxanne was on food stamps for like the first 4 years we were doing this company because we couldn't pay ourselves. And we had a $5,000 credit limit on the credit card, so I could travel so far and then like decline. I'm like, I gotta get home. So, and my son was a bartender at night. Roxanne and Paul got jobs at a mini storage on weekends, so she could still work full-time for Answers and collect money. So, it was a lot of sacrifice, and we did not become profitable until we had our own plant. That was a very big part of it, because when you're being, the meat was being done by a third party, we were making very little margin on it. What kept the company going mostly in the first part was we enjoyed 4 years of being the only goat milk on the market. We introduced that product to the industry. I think the industry was very scared, like, oh yeah, FDA is going to shut them down. We're not putting this stuff out. And then we're going around the country selling it, and it was, getting these great results. I'll never forget one of the first testimonies I had. We had the milk on the East Coast, and a person called me up. They had a little black and white dog. I can't remember the breed. And they had the appointment for this dog to be euthanized already set. They went into the store to give the dog a last, treat, but it had IBD, inflammatory bowel disease, so bad it wasn't thriving, and they could tell the dog was in pain and it just wasn't working. And they gave a couple doses of the raw goat milk and turned the dog around like that. And I'll never forget, it was one of my first testimonials where they were in tears, and I'm like, yay, that's what it's supposed to do. And they just kept coming and coming and coming, and things that didn't work. And and Roxanne and I developed the raw milk diet, and that cured pets, and we just kept diving into it and learning as we were going too. I remember saying about the milk, I didn't know it could do that. So because, they would just tell us all kinds of things. Then we started using it as eye drops, ear drops, topically, and we, started exploring more things with it, and it just kept growing. And then after about 4 years, another company took the risk and put some on the market. And I have to laugh. We have trade shows, and Roxanne and I were just at the Super Zoo trade show. There is goat milk everywhere, everywhere. Every company now sells goat milk or a version of goat milk. So it was a great experience, and I'm glad we could put it on the market and make a positive effect, because if you just pour our goat milk over kibble, you can add years to a dog's life.
So what inspired you to start this company in the first place?
I told you I was working in the veterinary industry, and I was working for a holistic vet, and I was going and looking at different modalities of the holistic, and I was really interested in nutrition. I was frustrated, and because we weren't getting great results with medicine, and I didn't like the side effects of medicine. And I was cleaning out a German Shepherd's ear one time, and the dog was screaming because he kept coming in for ear infections. And one time it would be yeast infection, and the next time it would be bacterial infection. And I just suggested to them, I said, hey, just add a raw egg, because they were farmers, and this was in rural Pennsylvania, to this dog's diet. That dog never had an ear infection again. And that's when I went nuts. Okay, this is working. I actually made a difference and cured this dog from his pain. And so at the time I was feeding Wisong to my own dogs, and the distributor that was giving me the Wisong turned me on to Nature's Variety. And the holistic vet retired, so I applied to Wysong and Nature's Variety, and Nature's Variety hired me. And that's where I learned the industry for 6 years. And I remember the owner of Nature's Variety asked me, why, how come you're selling so well? I'm like, hey, I'm not a salesperson, but I know this stuff works and I know why it works. And I said, I can sell the heck out of it. And I did really well. And it was great. I was promoted. I had 7 people underneath me. Had the whole Eastern region, and I was going around doing my thing. And then they got sold to an investment firm. And the investment firm didn't realize they bought a liability, because FDA was just kind of looking at the raw category going, is this thing going to last, or is it going to go away? Is this just a fad? And they decided they were going to pasteurize the raw with high pressure pasteurization. So I immediately went to my family and went, okay, we got to do this. We can't lose the truly raw, on the market. And that's when I started talking to Roxanne, and we actually explored several different ways to try to mitigate the bad bacteria, and landed on the fermentation, and just kind of went from there. And it wasn't very successful in the beginning, except for the milk. We got a lot of pushback on our packaging. I do remember talking to a group of stores up in the Pacific Northwest that said, unless you put it in plastic, I can't sell it. And my response to them was, I'd rather fail than compromise. See you later. So it was not easy, because the packaging was different. People weren't familiar with it. And but it was all part of our package as far as putting a product on the market with the least amount of toxins as we possibly could. So that's kind of, so answers came out of the need and the changing in the raw category.
Now, sensitive question, but this is something that, I think listeners are wanting to know in a way, is why did you leave Answers to start Kure?
Well, we didn't leave Answers to start Kure. We left Answers because when we finally started becoming profitable, money was being misappropriated. And Roxanne and I don't have a majority of stocks. We were outvoted by the other owners. And when they started seeing the dollars, one of the first things the other owners did is come to me and Roxanne and say, cut your budget by 25%. I'm like, what do you mean? I can't cut my budget by 25%. We need to make more money. And I'm like, oh, I'm not compromising. So there became, difficulties within the ownership. And Roxanne and I saw the company taking a turn for the worst, and decisions being made that we couldn't change, and people not listening to our direction anymore. So we tried for almost a year and a half to change the dynamics back to what got us to where we were. And when we realized we couldn't do that, then her and I decided we were not going to jeopardize our reputation in the pet food industry. And we asked to be bought out of the company. And we actually didn't know what we were going to do after we got bought out. By the way, they still have yet to buy us out because they're holding us hostage. And so we never made a penny from all those 12 years of hard work that we did. In fact, they caused us a lot of high tax liability. But so after we left and the farmers were concerned, they're not going to have a place for their products. And they wanted to, they were enjoying the mission that we were doing together, because it was, and so they came to Roxanne and I and said, if we start our own company, would you two help us? And we said yes. So that's how Kure got put together.
So Kure is actually founded by the farmers and the two of you. So it's not just the two of you, but it's because the farmers wanted to continue creating this beautiful, wholesome product for consumers.
That's correct.
That's not tarnished or compromised.
Yeah, we founded the new company. Then we invited Jacqueline and Roxanne to join the new company as an outside party.
So we don't have any ownership in Kure. We actually, and it's funny because you said it earlier, we started a consulting company called Trinity Clean Foods, and we use it to bring clean foods either to the human market or to the pet market.
Right. Okay. Okay. I understand now. Okay. So, you know, with this injunction that's going on right now, and the farmers cannot sell their product at all, what's going to happen to all the goats and, you know, all your stock and everything? It's, you know.
You want to? Well, Rocky Ridge Goat Dairy is Irvin's, his son-in-law's dairy is where everything's packaged. Okay. But there's 20 other farms that supply, because we were doing several million pounds of milk through Answers when we were at one of our highest. So Cure's way of making sure these 20 auxiliary farmers didn't lose their livelihoods, and was to say to Answers, well, we'll coexist. You go do your thing and I'll give you goat milk, and we'll do our thing, and that would be the best for everybody, because, you know, their competition is good, you know, and everybody rides with the tide. But Answers refused that model, and said to the lawsuit. But so right now, in part of the injunction is you can't hurt other companies around you. If the judge is going to put an injunction on Kure, he can't do it unless he's not hurting other farmers. Okay, that's part of the injunction. So the judge said to Answers, you have to buy this milk. Now, they have agreed to buy that milk for 90 days, but in 90 days is really when the most milk is going to be flowing, because come springtime, all the goats freshen, and the green grass, and the milk increases almost fivefold compared to what's being produced right now. So we don't know right now what's going to happen to these goats in 90 days, because Answers has only agreed to buy milk for the next 90 days. If we don't find an outlet for this milk, goats will have to be destroyed, because if the farmers can't feed them, you know, then, you know, that's the only humane thing that they can do, and try to sell them. But keep in mind, right now, there's 1,830 some goats being milked, and there's just not an outlet for that much goat milk anywhere else. So right now, we don't really know what's going to happen to them come spring.
How many days has it been now? What day is it today?
December the 1st, it started. December, January, and February. 90 days will end late February.
Right. And has Answers come forward yet to buy anything?
Only milk.
Only milk.
They're only buying milk. They have another cheese manufacturer, another farm that creates cheese for them.
Okay.
And vegetables, they might be doing it somewhere else as well. But there's no fish broth or chicken broth out there.
No, Steve, wants you to know that, you know, he never stops fighting. He's always innovating and trying to come up with some way to get around, you know, what our problems are. I'm just hoping that the legal system, you know, does what it's supposed to do and fixes this problem. And, you know, you might want to tell your viewers too that there is a GoFundMe for the farmers that are possibly going to lose out come 90 days when Answers no longer buys their milk. And if the judge doesn't allow Kure put the milk on the market, then they're going to, you know, that's going to be very, very damaging to the dairy community in Pennsylvania. And I don't know why we can't get the judge to see that, and that he's, you know, affecting many, many livelihoods here, but we're going to keep trying.
You know, living in Singapore, I'm not very familiar with the legal system in the US,
Sure.
but from what I observe as a very ignorant layperson over here in Singapore, it doesn't sound very logical.
It's not logical.
What's going on to Kure right now, and pardon my ignorance, everyone, but I actually think it stinks. You know, I think it's rotten to the core. I don't think it's very fair for whatever justice is supposed to be in my idealistic mind. I'm just very surprised at how the legal system where you are based in Pennsylvania is actually allowing this to happen. You know,
we agree with you 100%. We never thought it, you know, we know what we're doing is right and just, and we assumed that the legal system would see the logic and the law, and unfortunately that didn't happen. We're hoping that, you know, we sent the lost, you know, the judgment to the appellate courts, but in Pennsylvania, you know, it's everybody knows everybody, and if you know the internal workings of the law, like Answer's lawyer does, I think you can get a lot of things done in that manner that wouldn't normally be a judgment of that sort. I hope that makes sense.
I think the only thing I would, you know, just like to say to, you know, anyone who's willing to listen is that, you know, despite the legal battle going on, you know, our passion, our hearts are still in this, and we do, you know, it is our goal is to bring Kure pet foods, you know, to the community and to pets. So I just want people to know that we haven't given up on that. You know, we obviously have a rough legal battle ahead of us, but that we haven't given up, and you know, we're hopefully can still be part of this community. The raw feeding community is a tight-knit community that I feel is an extended family for a lot of people. And so I just want everyone to know that, you know, we haven't given up on our family, and we're here, and we're going to continue to try to push forward.
Yeah, no, it disturbs me a lot that this is actually happening, because in my mind, I look at the two of you ladies and Steve, and you know, like I said, I actually am a huge fan of the work that you're doing, because you represent to me, you know, hope for the small business owner, the minority, you know, the women who are starting out with nothing, you know, farmers. I mean, Steve, I am not very familiar with your culture, you know,
Sure.
so please forgive me if I offend you by accident, because I'm not very sure about it. But from what I understand, the Amish, if that's how I pronounce it correctly, you know, you guys have lived by a code, you know, a value system that, to be honest, is such a rarity now. You know, maybe 50 years ago, or maybe my grandparents' time, it would have been normal for people to be honorable, to be respectful of nature, you know, to do things with love and with ethics, you know.
Sure.
And you know what you guys have been creating on your farm, this biodynamic way of growing things and not wasting things, as Roxanne was explaining and Jacqueline was saying, you know, this beautiful true magic of nature that you're creating is so rare. To me, it's a beacon of hope for the world, not just in the US, but even for me in this part of the world, in Asia, where unfortunately
you know, I'm surrounded by huge developing countries like Indonesia and China, where, you know, there's a lot of pollution going on because of manufacturing, you know, and standards are lacking, to be honest, and there is corruption. And what the three of you have been creating, beginning with Answers and now with Kure, is it's really beautiful. I can't
Thank
find
you.
another word to describe it. You know, it's so beautiful and clean and so ethical. The standards that you hold are so high. The fact that you bother to go to AFCO and fight and to find ways to even comply with the regulations so that you can sell your products, you know, without being hijacked or penalized, you know, as many raw food companies sometimes get into. But you guys have been always been able to hold your head high and to do things with such, you know, passion and belief. You know, it you know, it makes me so proud and hopeful for the human race that there are people like you, honestly, because I think especially with COVID the last 2 years, there's been so much you know, a lot of people are jaded, a lot of people are frightened and fearful and listening to whatever is being broadcast by all the major media outlets, you know. And but what you guys have been doing all this time has always been stay true to your cause, stay true to your values, you know. The fact that I can see the three of you, there's so much love and respect, you know, there is a bond there that is so rare. It really is rare, you know. The level of trust and respect that the three of you have, the chemistry. And I wish that there were more companies like you, more people like you who are fighting the good fight to help pet parents around the world to see that there is a better way of doing business, a cleaner way of doing business, without selling out, without lowering your standards, without destroying the earth, you know, respecting the natural sources that you use, the materials that you have. You know, what you guys do is not easy. And I have a huge respect for you because, you know, like I said, huge fan over here. And I've been following your story for such a long time. It was my dream to interview you like ages ago, but I was always very shy and I wasn't sure if I would be able to get an interview with you because I thought, you know what, I think these ladies are, and you know, you guys are too busy doing what you're doing, you know. And I think the universe, God, Allah, whoever you believe in, you know, believe in the rightness of what you're doing to actually have made this connection between us. Because honestly, you know, I wouldn't have thought that I would be able to speak to not just the two ladies, but to the hero of the story, Steve. Because you know, you are the one who's creating this beautiful, all these beautiful products, you know, with such love and reverence. I What's happening right now, I just really feel for you. People, you can think I'm biased, but let me just tell you that if you see what I see here on this on my screen, if you listen and look at all the testimonials that are not paid for by anyone, it's no marketing gimmick, because this is something that they can't honestly afford to do. You know, they don't have the money really, but their products have been changing the lives of sick animals all these years for over a decade. That there is a following and everyone is just rooting for you. You know, they can't believe what's happening. And I honestly, you know, I pray that the truth will come out and that you guys will see justice done for what's happening. Because what
Thank
is
you.
We appreciate that.
Thank you. We do appreciate that.
I just feel that, I look at Steve, he's such a hardworking man. And I want to thank you for actually making the effort to come and speak to me, because I was cracking my head. How can I speak to you?
We might be back too often. We'll be back again.
You inviting myself back?
Yes.
I would love that as a follow on, because I would love if you had more time in the future to actually get to know more about your community and what you're doing,
Thank
to
you.
explain
You
to
ever come back to
people.
the States? Do you ever come
Well,
over to the States?
I think pre-COVID would have been something that I was aiming for. But with COVID now, it's really, really hard. And I have to tell you, I'm a rescuer here. So I live with 12 cats and 1 dog at the moment. But I take care of the community cats in my neighborhood. So I do trap, neuter, and return. I help to manage the stray cat population. And once in a while, we get extra dogs or whatever. But, it's because of people like you that I do what I try to do over here. So I try to feed a more, fresh, raw food approach when I can with budget. When I can't, I tell people, feed with wet canned food is fine, or raw eggs, make bone broth, So, we try to educate, and I try to work with a lot of low income families here. So as you know, that's not easy. But, we try to improve the diet of the animal as however we can. We try to work within their limits. And it's people like you, honestly, that inspire me, because you're the golden standard, honestly. You are.
Tell your audience hello, and that when they're in our area, they're supposed to visit the farm. We'll show them the goat process, the fish process, cheese process. They're welcome to come to visit the farm.
Well, if I ever get a chance to visit, I will definitely come and visit you. It has been actually my dream. I've always, dreamt that I would love to visit and just see how you guys are doing it over there, because
Good.
I think what you're doing is just a very beautiful process that's so respectful of the earth, and I wish more people would see what you're doing and replicate it, because we need more people like you, because we only have one planet.
I know. And we're going to share the planet, aren't we?
Yeah, we need to save our planet. But I just want to thank you for making the time. I know you're very busy, but I hope to be able to speak with you again when you have more time in the future, and we can follow up.
Yeah, we will set up another moment for this. And thank you for showing us around. Thank you.
Thank you.
God be
Thank
with
you.
you.
Yeah.
Please consider supporting Steve Fisher and the other affected Amish farmers. There is a GoFundMe campaign entitled #IStandWithKure. One word. Thank you.
Wow, I'm so thankful and grateful that you took the time to listen to this podcast. It would mean the world to me if you could subscribe, download, rate, review, and share this with others whom you care about that may enjoy it as well. Thank you, and remember to be kind to yourself and others. Have a awesome day, everyone.